André,
What, Sarah?
Iran's navy is gone.
Iran's navy is gone. That's a great question, and the answer is yes, Sarah.
Oh, what about the Air Force?
The Air Force, that I'm not sure, but it may be gone. I have a special video for us.
Okay.
The title of the video goes, Iran's entire Air Force evaporated. If evaporated means what I think it means, it may be gone. Sarah, say hello to our friends.
Hi, guys.
Well, friends, thank you so much for all the support. We really appreciate that. That said, Sarah, ask them for the most important thing.
Guys, leave a like, thumbs up.
And if they subscribe,
You make our day.
damn right. Link below for the original video. Actually, one more thing. You can also hype a video nowadays. Please do it. It helps a lot. Search for that option and let's go.
Iran spent 47 years building its air force. Didn't build a very good force, but it built something that it thought would at least allow it to maintain small pockets of air superiority over its own territory. But that didn't happen. In just 24 hours, the US wiped out Iran's entire air force. It's gone, evaporated. A shock.
In 24 hours, they destroyed the entire Air Force.
Yeah.
But I believe they also destroyed the entire
Navy,
right? Okay, all right, let's continue with this. Again, my friends, war always bad, so have that in mind. But it's kind of crazy that they destroyed the Navy and the Air Force in a week.
At the same time.
Yeah, I mean, probably at the same time, yeah.
The oil campaign has made even the prospect of an Iranian pilot taken to the sky suicidal. And there isn't a thing that Iran can do about any of it. The footage reveals everything. Shared by Max Afterburner, a video released by US Central Command shows just one of the multitude of strikes that the US conducted against Iran's aging fleet of aircraft. Sitting sullen and alone on an airfield, the Iranian jet is destroyed in a heartbeat, and this has been happening over and over across Iran. Every air base that the US strikes results in Iranian airframes going up in flames, and it's gotten to the point where Iran basically has no options in the skies. It can't.
Okay, so they have total air superiority. That's a difficult word. But basically, they control the air, and they also have control of, I guess, the ocean.
Yeah.
But the Strait of Hormuz, from what I understand, is still a big problem because they send missiles from the land, from Iran. But this is not looking that great for Iran at this point. This is a difficult war because I feel like geography is the strongest thing that goes for Iran. It's a very mountain region. It's difficult to target from what I understand. But man, we are just 1 week, 2 weeks into this. It's actually fascinating is not a correct word, but what the American military with Israel can do.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's mind-blowing.
Send aircraft to fight against America's overwhelming force. The few that it had that might be able to put up a fight are gone, and what is left are the dregs of an air force that is decades behind the curve. We'll explain why in just a few minutes. But before we do, Afterburner explains what is happening to Iran's air force right now. They've completely dismantled Iran's air force, hitting bases like Tabriz, Afterburner explains. Looks like destroying even more F-4 Phantoms, Su-22 attack aircraft, ground attack aircraft mainly are being vaporized, F-14 Tomcats, F-5 Tigers, and drone sites before anything can turn a wheel. Literally nothing is getting airborne at this point. Aerotime adds that Israel's air force has confirmed that it destroyed an Iranian F-4 along with an F-5 at the Tabriz base as each of the aircraft prepared for takeoff. So even the Iranian pilots who were willing to attempt the suicide mission of taking on the US and Israel didn't get very far. Both the US and Israel have also been targeting the support facilities that enable airframes to take off. Satellite images reveal destroyed storage bunkers at the Konarak base and a shattered radar system at Zahdar. These weren't random strikes. The US and Israel coordinated to cripple Iranian air power before it ever had a chance to make itself known. You'll have already noticed that the aircraft the US is taking out would be considered old by any modern military standards. But these airframes are the best that Iran has, and they're being systematically destroyed by an American and Israeli bombing campaign that has already achieved the most important goal for the joint Operation Epic Fury and Operation Roaring Lion, achieve complete air superiority.
A lot of the jets that Iran has or had, I'm not even sure at this point, is basically technology that Russia shared with them, I believe.
Okay.
So maybe some models are actually old models from the Soviet Union, even maybe, you know.
It's not better enough to defeat Americans.
No, it's no.
Okay.
no.
I just
Not even close.
Okay.
It's old technology. And to be fair, I don't think we look at Iran and we think, oh, they are super advanced in technology. It's more that they have a lot of missiles, from what I understand. They are a tough country in terms of geography. I think that's what goes for them. But I mean, even Israel is crazy advances because America supplies a lot of technology to Israel.
Israel, yeah.
That's according to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, who has confirmed that the US followed Israel's lead when it came to striking Iran just a few days ago, and that the scale of these strikes has devastated Iran's air force. The US strikes have resulted in the establishment of local air superiority. This air superiority will not only enhance the protection of our forces, but also allow them to continue the work over Iran, Kane declares. For that to have happened, the US not only had to have ruined Iran's airframes, but also destroyed the country's air defenses. That's a little hint. The US has already done both. We'll be getting to Iran's air defense situation a little later.
So why they don't give up?
I mean, there is a lot. They are tough people in the sense that
They are pride.
They have pride, of course, but is also a very religious country, I would say. So they may think this is happening for a reason to them or something, you know. Again, I'm speaking more than I should on this type of topics in the sense that I don't know for sure. But I mean, they are not giving up, and more destruction will come. That's the bad thing. I think what America tries to do, and again, this is just me looking from outside. I'm not trying to be political here. That I think they went there, they destroyed a lot of their military stuff.
Yes.
They end up killing the leader, and now maybe the people will take control of the country, you know, become free again.
Yes.
So far, I'm not sure if that is working. America is destroying everything, basically, but they don't. It's difficult for that people to break free, you know.
Aircraft front, the US bombardments of Iran's air bases have been so effective that not a single one of Iran's pilots has taken off. Iran hasn't attempted any manned sorties during the 4-day war so far, and frankly, any pilot who does try to take to the skies now will be engaging in a suicide mission, given both the age of their aircraft and the sheer level of air superiority that the US has attained. Iranian fighter pilots also know that it's suicidal to go up against an F-15 Strike Eagle, F-16, F-18, or F-35, Afterburner explains. America's bombing campaign has been so successful over a 24-hour period that what was once a fleet of about 400 Iranian aircraft has been whittled down to about 200. In other words,
I don't even know that well about F-15s and stuff like that, but for example, the F-35 and the F-22 is the best of the best in the world. You know, it's kind of like this.
They have no chance.
They have no chance, yeah. And people that say America is losing, I guess that's a perspective that, in the sense that they are not giving up, maybe they think America is losing, but in reality, there is, you know. At war, everyone loses. That's the reality.
Yes, of course. But
how can America lose this? America can go back to home and say we destroyed everything. That's it. You know. But I think the idea here is actually to try to make Iran a country that is more in line with America, with Israel, with because they are afraid of, okay, we destroyed everything, but they will try to have nuclear weapons in the future, maybe again. So they are trying to fix the problem for real, if that makes sense, you know what I mean? Not just a temporary thing.
What little aerial threat that Iran could have posed in the sky has been halved before a single one of its airframes could get off the ground. And it seems likely that the US has focused most of its fire on the aircraft that could have presented something resembling a threat, which leaves Iran with an air force that is little more than a collection of poorly maintained airframes that were built decades ago.
This
is what
massive.
aerial domination.
This is the aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
America have like 11 or something of those. This is the... Sorry, but I believe... not sure if this is more expensive than a B-2 bomber, for example, but I know this is one of the most expensive things you can have, you know, in the military. Let me say just another thing, and I will shut up after this. But but it's important because a lot of people saying that America will lose this war. I was looking into that. A lot of conspiracy theories that make no sense. Is more people trying to wish that America failed. That actually what is really happening. Remembers maybe the same that ended up happening between Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
Of course, that Russia will win the war eventually, my friend.
Yes.
There is no way around that. Because that red button is very powerful, and America have the biggest one. Israel also have one. So again, if I could choose, I hope there is no war. Between Ukraine and Russia, between America and Iran.
But peace have a price.
Yeah, peace have a price, and
that's why.
I believe they have even an expression that is peace to power or to strength, something like this. You guys probably will know what I'm talking about. But makes, again, America is winning, but it depends how you look at this. Winning is what is actually to make that country free. That may take longer than expected, I would say. But I mean, saying that Iran will defeat America but it's crazy that people fell for that. Honestly, it's actually kind of crazy. It's the media sometimes also just America destroys 100 bases in Iran. One drone hits an American base, and all of a sudden we are losing. It's just nonsense.
Makes sense.
It's kind of like they are swimming, so they will get wet, but does not mean they are drowning.
Looks like, and the US planned it all well in advance. That's according to Business Insider, which reveals that the US...
Okay, but sorry, I end up talking too much. My friends, I will shut up. We're going to react to the video. Because again, I love America and I don't like to see people doing that,
Planned it all well in advance. That's according to Business Insider, which reveals that the US and Israel did far more than fling missiles and bombs at Iran from its fighter jets during the opening hours of the war. Both were much smarter than that. They knew that for as little threat as Iran's fighter jets posed, flying in without being prepared would still make their superior aircraft vulnerable. The outlet reports on more comments made by Kane, who said that the US campaign against Iran, which began on February 28th, was kicked off with the layering non-kinetic effects, disrupting and degrading and blinding Iran's ability to see, communicate and respond. What this translates to is that the US and Israel launched cyber attacks and even space commands that crippled Iran's air force hours before the first US fighter jets took off in the direction of Tehran.
I never remember the cyber attacks.
Yeah,
they are important.
They are super important nowadays. They are maybe the most important thing when they start the war. Because they go into blackout in terms of they don't know what is happening basically. And Israel and America are really good at that.
With a cyber attack, you can shut down an entire city or country.
I think so. Maybe GPS and stuff like that does not work for them. No, I think that's totally possible nowadays.
The initial non-kinetic US approach targeted everything from Iran's command and control facilities through to its ballistic missile sites and intelligence infrastructure in an operation that was designed to daze and confuse them. It worked. Before Iran even knew what was happening, up to half of its airframes were destroyed, and the air defenses that were supposed to protect them, along with other key military nodes, had completely failed to take down even a single American or Israeli jet. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio argues that the US went proactively in a defensive way with its initial round of strikes, and that Iran has to get ready because the hardest hits are yet to come from the US military. That's the last thing that Iran's regime wants to hear. As it sifts through the wreckage of its destroyed fighter jets and other aircraft, the prospect of more coming when Iran is basically defenseless in the skies is terrifying. Iran will be wondering how all of this happened. How did its carefully laid plans for defeating the US fall apart so quickly? There are two answers to that question, one covering Iran's air defenses, and the other that dives into the detail about the state of that air force the country had built. We'll come to the second answer a little later in the video, but on the air defense front, there's no way to sugarcoat things for Iran. Its entire air defense network has utterly failed to do anything about the combined US and Israeli strikes, and that's why dozens, perhaps even hundreds of Iran's airframes are just craters in the ground right now. US President Donald Trump has already declared that Iran's air defenses are gone, along with its navy, air force, and most of its leadership structure. Trump also claims that Iran's missile capability is being diminished, which presumably also accounts for missiles that would have been fired by the country's air defense systems. We've had a very powerful impact, Virtually everything they had has been knocked out now. Their missile count is going down, Trump said on March 3rd. Dan Kane has emphasized this point when discussing the US.
I wonder how long this will go at this point, because I believe that they destroyed a big part of the Navy, big part of the Air Force, but
they have what? Missiles?
Yeah, missiles, bombs, stuff like that. They on the ground they still are a force. But I don't know how long this will go. I hope it ends soon. But it's a very difficult war to predict in that sense. That how long can this last?
Yeah.
Its air superiority, noting that Iran's air defenses have been degraded to the point where American pilots can fly with near impunity over Iranian territory. We're starting to see this in the nature of the US airframes that are flying into Iran right now. For instance, Asia Times reports that the US has started sending B-1 Lancer bombers into Iran to conduct airstrikes, rather than the B-2 Spirit stealth bombers that America sent earlier in the conflict. This indicates a high level of confidence that Iran's long-range surface-to-air missile SAM systems are no longer a primary threat to non-stealth aircraft in certain corridors, the outlet reports, adding that the US and Israel are now focused on destroying as many of Iran's transporter Erector launchers to take out even more of its air defense capabilities. And naturally, weaker air defenses create more opportunities for American bombers and...
See, this is the B-2 bomber, but I think those are also bombers.
Okay, different models.
Different models. The B-2 bomber is kind of like the best. This is the B-1, I think. But yeah, they end up using this in the summer, but I don't think they are using it anymore. Maybe it's not necessary.
Okay.
I don't know. Because you can use nuclear stuff, I believe, with those. But this will not get to that point.
I hope not.
I hope not, yeah. And there is a lot of people in America that are split between this. Some people disagree with this war, and this is understandable also, With that, I'm quite more okay. I just don't understand why people fell into the idea that America is losing the war. What even if you disagree, even if you disagree, that it's America.
Fighter jets to do their business, which will almost inevitably lead to the loss of yet more Iranian airframes beyond those that the US destroyed in just 24 hours. The question has to be asked: how did Iran's air defenses fail so catastrophically in the first place? We'll get to that in a second, but before we do, you are watching The Military Show. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to hit that button.
Link below, my friends.
Back to Iran's failed air defenses. We've already discussed how the US launched a non-kinetic campaign as a precursor to its early strikes, which likely took many of Iran's air defenses offline. However, Army technology reveals that there are more reasons why those defenses utterly failed to do the one thing they were designed to do. The outlet reports on the aggressive electromagnetic spectrum operations the US and Israel deployed, which would have shut down Iranian air defense radars so they couldn't see airframes and projectiles coming. However, this approach was combined with a more kinetic approach that saw the US and Israel divide their responsibilities. Specifically, the US took charge of strikes against Iran's air defenses, control centers, and much of the country's military and logistics infrastructure. Israel went after ballistic missile launchers and Iran's leadership. This was made a lot easier on the air defense front because the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, had retained about 100 air defense systems, but likely didn't have many of the missiles needed to use those systems to their fullest. Another of Iran's air defense problems comes from the fact that it's deployed copycat systems throughout much of its network. Yes, Iran has some Russian and Chinese air defense systems, but most of what it has are reverse-engineered versions of those systems, Army technology.
I guess the biggest fear right now here is that if China and Russia
help them,
all of this. No, I think they are already helping them.
Oh, okay.
But if they actually say, if you guys are against Iran, you guys are also against us, kind of like official,
Oh, okay, I see.
This is what can trigger some type of World War III for sure. I think that's the biggest fear right now.
She reports. For instance, Iran's Bavar 373 is just a cheap knockoff of the S-300 systems that Ukraine has been destroying in massive quantities in its war with Russia. Iran's Yazar is just a reverse-engineered version of China's HQ-7, and something similar can be said of Iran's Zubin system. What we see here is that Iran tried to go up against two of the world's strongest air forces with an air defense network filled with garbage copies of other countries' tech. That went about as well as you would expect.
That's why.
Right now, Afterburner says the US has achieved air superiority in Iran due to these many air defense failures. Now America's goal has to switch to keep that superiority, because there are certain surface-to-air missile systems that are still alive and well, Afterburner claims. They'll pop out from a hiding spot and then launch a missile, so the US still has to take care in the skies. Iran's air defenses are crippled, but they're not quite dead. Still, they were useless enough to not be able to do a thing about America's 24-hour shock and awe campaign unleashed against the Iranian Air Force. And neither could Iran's airframes, which brings us back to the second reason why all of this happened to Iran. The simple fact is that Iran's Air Force was too weak to stack up to what the US brought to the table from the start. This was Mike Tyson delivering a haymaker to an old man with no arm, and you'll have seen that in the age of the airframes that we talked about right at the beginning. Aerotime goes into more detail, noting that Iran's beleaguered Air Force had zero chance right from the start. The very best of its fighter jets include a fleet of 65 F-4s, 41 F-14s, 35 F-5s, and an assortment of Soviet-era Russian platforms, such as the Su-24 and MiG-29. Add a few tankers and special mission aircraft into the mix, and that's all Iran had. The country also has no airborne early warning fleet, which, when combined with the utter failure of its air defenses, means that the Mike Tyson haymaker ended up being a sucker punch delivered right to the back of Iran's head. An ancient air force isn't a good start when you're going up against the US. But an old air force that isn't even being maintained is an even bigger problem. There are roughly 400 or so aging aircraft that have been crippled by sanctions, and they lack modern capabilities, Afterburner says. At least there were 400 aircraft in Iran's air force. There are a lot fewer now. But that sums it up, because even if Iran's pilots were foolish enough to try to take to the skies in their older fighter jets, they wouldn't even be able to trust those airframes to fulfill the limited capabilities that they're supposed to have.
I mean, with 35 F-15s in the sky right now, you need to be crazy to think, yeah, you know what, I'm just going to go check there what is going on.
Let me see what I can do.
No, see, can you imagine that? Unless they are suicidal or something, because otherwise, what?
There were plenty of hints that this would be the case long before the US unleashed its firestorm against Iran's Air Force. Back in May 2022, Iran International reported that the volume of sanctions leveled against Iran was behind a spate of Air Force accidents that had resulted in several deaths. A pair of Iran's pilots had died at Iran's Desfoul air base in June 2021, both due to sudden glitches in their ejector seats that happened before they even got the aircraft off the ground. Retired pilot Brigadier General Kiyumaz Haidarian, who trained in the US and flew for the Iranian Air Force both before and after the 1979 revolution in the country, made it clear why this happened. Accidents happen everywhere, and no one in the world has managed to decrease the number of accidents to zero. But if the equipment is complete, it's natural that the number of accidents will be fewer, he said. In other words, ejector seats explode on their own when you don't have the parts to maintain them. By June 2025, the national interest was calling Iran's Air Force a mess, as it noted that Iran had gone to extreme lengths to keep a handful of its ancient aircraft airworthy, but even those weren't ever going to be effective against a modern air force. Again, sanctions were to blame, as Iran has to deal with the 1-2 punch of having an old fleet and the complete inability to maintain the majority of the aircraft that were in that fleet. So the fight was always going to play out in America's favor. The reasons why Iran's pilots aren't flying is that they don't have the equipment. They didn't have it even before the bombs and missiles flew, and they'll never have it again now that the few airframes that might have been viable for Iran have been destroyed. Even before the US struck, the national interest claimed that only 50 to 60% of Iran's 400 airframes were even flyable, with the rest being set aside for the spare parts that the sanctions prevent Iran from buying elsewhere. This was an unfair fight right from the start. But that's what happens when you have a fleet composed of predominantly old Western airframes and a regime that hates the West. Rod meet Iran's back, built by the very regime that is now crumbling. Talk about biting the hand that feeds. With its air force practically gone, Iran only has a handful of aerial options left, and almost all of them are unmanned, which means that Iran has not only lost millions of dollars of airframes to the US strikes, but it also has to deal with the sunk cost of training a bunch of pilots who aren't ever going to fly. Still, Iran's drones are doing more than its airframes.
Because the thing about, having a jet, a big navy and stuff like that, okay, but you have to every year you have to take care of them, maintenance is very, very expensive, America spends billions just keeping what they have,
That's the secret.
That's the secret. And a lot of countries, I believe even Russia, have a couple of submarines that are very expensive but don't work because they are just broken, This is something that people should talk more is what you invest, but also how you keep the things you own, you know what I mean?
Frames ever did. Al Jazeera reports that hundreds of Iran's drones have targeted bases and military nodes in several Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. The Russian news agency TASS carries comments by a supposed unmanned aircraft expert named Dmitry Kuzyakin, who claims that economy, as always, is the main weapon of any war, and here it's on Iran's side. Iran can change war with drones literally indefinitely. That feels like a stretch. Granted, the US spends a lot more than the cost of building a drone on air defense missiles like those used in its Patriot systems. But if we're talking economy, combining existing sanctions with the US and Israel wrecking the Iranian means of drone production with their expensive missiles suggests that Iran's drone-reliant strategy may have a shorter shelf life than the Russian analyst suggests. Oh, and it's not like the US doesn't have drones of its own. If Iran's regime somehow manages to survive the blitz that it's absorbing right now, the US can easily rush one-way and interceptor drones into manufacturing to engage in a tit-for-tat battle if needed. The reality that Iran has to face is that time is running out on its defense. All it has left are drones and depleting supplies of missiles, as its air force, along with every other facet of the asymmetrical strategy intended to launch against the US, lies in ruins. Iran is still trying to maintain some sort of threat, of course. As fighter jets burn on the tarmac, Iran was vowing to strike European countries if they dared join the war on America's side.
But they did already. They ended up sending to Turkey a couple of times, Cyprus. They did that already. I'm going to say another thing that is controversial probably, but I think European countries should be, quite more allied with America at this point.
Yeah, of course.
It's kind of like they are silent until when, you know what I mean? I don't get it.
They have to decide.
They have to decide. Our country kind of showed support to the US, and that made me happy. But other countries need to speak more,
Yeah.
US and likely Europe know that these threats are starting to ring increasingly hollow. Iran is in no position to start throwing them around. And if Trump is to be believed, whatever off-ramps that the US might have been offering a few days ago have been withdrawn. They want to talk, Trump claimed of Iran. I said, too late. But having said that, Trump is scheduled to speak with the remnants of Iran's regime on March 8th, reportedly at the request of the regime itself. A white flag will likely be present. Whether the US chooses to accept Iran's surrender, and whether Iran's regime is collectively pig-headed enough to believe that it will still be able to bargain for anything, will only be seen over the weekend. In the meantime, Iran will continue to make threats. But with what force? Certainly not an air force, that's for sure. With half its fleet gone and the rest unlikely to be flyable, Iran has surrendered its skies to the US and Israel. And all it took was 24 hours. Iran can't even console itself with the thought that the US unleashed the one missile that changed air combat forever against its jets. How could it? Iran's fighters never got off the ground. Still, that missile is worth learning about. So if you want to find out more about something that the US could have unleashed on Iran, and may yet do, check out our video. And if you enjoyed...
Right. This is a crazy situation in the Middle East again, because can escalate. That's the problem. But yes, Iran is not doing that well. I mean, let's be real, no navy, no air force, what the hell? And this is a week, you know what I mean? So if this goes for months, nothing will be left. That's the crazy thing, So, yeah. Again, war always bad, my friend.
Yeah,
but
always, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
Sarah, say goodbye to our friends.
Bye, guys.
Bye, my friends.